So what are the 4 purposes of rapport? And I'll just let you go where you want to go with this one.
So we're jumping around kind of a little bit here. And again, most of this is sales related, but so when we're talking about sales, you usually hear like you have to have rapport with your customer. You have to have rapport. You want rapport, to communicate. And here's the problem. Most people don't understand rapport properly.
Okay.
Most people understand rapport or have viewed it as commonality.
Okay.
And you go through a lot of sales training and it's like, okay, so, like you came from small town Saskatchewan, I came from small town Saskatchewan. You have a son that plays softball and I got a niece that plays softball. You like going camping out, out west.
Yeah.
We go camping out west and trying to find that commonality. But one thing that commonality does is it makes us common, and it actually it can separate us from being the expert. There's certain fields and certain industries that we don't want necessarily, we don't expect the commonality. We want to talk to an expert.
Right.
Okay, I go to the doctor's office and I got a problem. I don't want to talk about what we all have in common. I go, here's my problem, let's fix it.
Right. Good point.
I don't want to just kind of chummy. Like, can I trust you? Do you know what you're talking about when I'm talking with my lawyer?
Right.
I trust him. I trust Caleb. I know what he's talking about. But I don't need to have that commonality. I just need to trust him as the expert and come to it. And so in sales, we often focus on the commonalities we have with our clients rather than establishing that expertness. So really rapport is characterized by agreement or a mutual understanding, connection, or empathy that makes communication more possible and easy. So having rapport is really having a mutual connection of understanding. And I can have that with somebody that I have almost nothing in common from or with. There's lots of times where I've done business as the seller or as the client where we got nothing in common. However, there was absolute rapport.
Okay.
Because I trusted them as an expert.
Gotcha.
Knew they had the solution to the problem. And I trusted their product. So when your initial question, what are the 4 purposes of it? Well, first of all, that's what it is. And then the purpose is, first of all, is just to make that instant connection. So you want to make a connection with somebody. Again, you want to be seen as the trusted advisor and the expert, and you want to maintain and you want to build that certainty, and you want to then also just kind of see yourself as the leader in the conversation. And so that rapport is really a deeper connection of understanding. And how we gain that rapport is through connection, not just through, you like boxers? I've got a boxer.
Right.
So what? It might be a nice little chit chat to break the ice, but what is that having to do with succession planning?
Right.
Is that actually going to move them to the place of often now what commonality will do is it will create and it will help you make friends. But there is a lot of people that I've, and I started my career like that in sales, and as I work with small businesses, where they go, yeah, like we had a great time, everything we were clicking on all cylinders, we went and, we had a coffee and, we chatted for an hour and a half, and then they went and bought somewhere else. And it was probably because you spent more time focusing on the commonality than the true rapport of setting up yourself as the expert, really speaking to the problem, and rather just focusing on that commonality. And that's one of the biggest shifts that I see in working with salespeople is that mindset shift from. Now, if you have things in common, great. But that's definitely not the focus. The focus is shifting them from uncertainty to certainty. And that typically isn't going to come because you have something in common.
Makes sense. So I guess irregardless of what industry you're in, when you're approaching quote unquote sales, going into it with that slightly different mindset of, because new clients come in here all the time. Yeah, maybe you look for some of those things that you have in common. Okay, some guy is coming in here, he's starting an oil field business. Okay, well, I worked in the oil field 20 some odd years ago. I can relate a little bit there. But at the end of the day, he's not in here to hear about my oil field stories from the early 2000s. He's here because he's got presumably some sort of accounting or tax issue that he would like to get resolved. It's probably nice that I can understand his situation, maybe more so than someone that hasn't been in that industry. But at the end of the day, I should be focusing my attention on those three things: expert, delivering that solution, and providing that trust.
Because some of them will cut you off. Some of that commonality can help establish you as the expert. So you're just not only the expert in all things taxes, but you've got an understanding of the industry.
Right.
And all of a sudden he's going, oh yeah, well that's cool. The other guy, he didn't even know
what any of this
he didn't know what any of this stuff was. So that can all be part of establishing ourselves as the expert. But it needs to be done with intention.
Gotcha.
That we're building those things using some of those commonalities, but we're not just parking on those common things.
Gotcha.